Welcome back to Off Ball Takes. This is your host, Yarby Laws, and this is my co-host.
Khristopher Wells.
Top notch.
We appreciate all the support on our recent content, and before we do get started, please don't forget to like and subscribe, and follow us on Instagram and TikTok at the OBT Podcast for more content and updates.
All right, we're back at it again with another episode. Hopefully everybody had a happy holidays so far. And we got some NBA Christmas games to talk about. We had a slate of 5 games, and you had some good ones. You had some ones that were a little bit just okay, but we're going to get into all of them. So I think we'll kind of start off with OKC San Antonio, right? So this was a matchup where, so for the record, I got, we didn't really do predictions necessarily like straight up, but I got a couple of them wrong. This was one that I got wrong because going into this game, I thought that Oklahoma City, after losing the last couple of matchups to the Spurs, I thought that they would kind of go in with more of a determined mindset to bounce back and make sure we can't let that happen again. We kind of have to go back and kind of show we're still the top dogs, and it's not what happened at all. The Spurs basically ran them over again. They won 117-102, right? And this one was led by De'Aaron Fox, who is in 2 of the 3 games, he's torched them. He's played really well. Was 3 of 4 from 3 in this game, 12 of 19 overall. And at least for the regular season, right, the Spurs have kind of shown so far in this matchup that they have ways to really cause OKC some problems, right? Because obviously with their size in the middle, with Wemby, 6-man Wemby and Luke Cornett, kind of walls off the paint, kind of forces OKC into jumpers. But they also have a lot of strong defenders, so it's not like they're just necessarily going to give up, easy shots to some of these guys. And they can also kind of force some of these guys like a Lou Dort, who's not been very good this year from 3. It's been pretty rough for him, unfortunately. Caruso had a bunch of wide open looks. Those didn't fall. And then you just kind of look around, and it was tough. And then in this game, even SGA really didn't have that good of a game, right? This was one of his worst games, honestly, right? Even though like the stat line, which is kind of how good he is, 22, 6, and 4, that's a decent stat line for a lot of guys. But this is a guy who's averaging 33 a game, shot 7 for 19, 1 for 6 from 3. Just an ugly game from Oklahoma City. They shot 39% from the field, 25% from 3 on 44 attempts, even from the free throw line. It just wasn't good. Chet Holmgren, minus 14, second worst plus minus in the game for Oklahoma City. Wemby kind of just trolling him again. And for the Spurs, like I said, this is a team that I was pretty much wrong about, just in the sense of they have all these guards that can penetrate, get into the lane, and kind of attack some of the weak links on OKC defensively, right? Even a guy like Fox, who's not really big, but he's super quick. Knows how to get to certain spots, especially in the mid-range into the basket. And then obviously Castle and Harper, those are big athletic guards that are great at attacking the basket, driving and kicking to those three-point shooters like a Harrison Barnes, like a Champagnie, even though he didn't hit any threes. But just kind of wild, right? In the sense of the Spurs are 3-0 against Oklahoma City this season, and now the team in OKC that for a while, right, everybody was kind of stamping down. They're going to win. They're going to set the all-time record for wins. It's going to be brutal. They may not get it, right, because they're 26-5, which is still great, still the best record in the league. But if they're going to keep that all-time record, they're only going to be able to lose 3 more games the rest of the way. Don't really feel like that's going to happen. And it was probably mainly a byproduct of the beginning part of the season. They did have they did play a lot of teams where they weren't really great. And if you're really good, the schedule doesn't really matter necessarily. It's just now they are consistently playing some tougher opponents, and you're just not always going to win every night. So it doesn't necessarily change how I feel about Oklahoma City. I mean, to be fair, I didn't pick them to win the title, but it's more so just a question of, we know that they're going to win a ton of games. They're probably going to finish with the best record. But are they going to be able to storm through the playoffs this season compared to last year, where it was a little bit of a struggle, especially at times on the offensive end? Because we know the defense is usually going to be there, although it really wasn't in these last couple of matchups. But the offensive end is kind of where it can get kind of dark for them, where when you start taking away, some of their offensive schemes, and when you can not really turn the ball over much. I believe the Spurs had 12 turnovers. OKC didn't turn it over that much, but just in general, it can be kind of hard. And because there were some games last year in the playoffs where OKC could not knock down anything. They couldn't hit the side of a barn, even on wide open shots. And that's where things can get kind of tough for them. I mean, like I said, I'm not panicking, but just for the Spurs, it just kind of goes to show for them how they've arrived and how they're kind of reaching the point where OKC was a couple seasons ago, where now they look like they have a formula to win a ton of games. Like I said, was dead wrong about them. I took the under on them. They look like they're going to be a 50-win team. It's just a matter of what is it going to look like come playoff time, right? Because in the playoffs, we haven't seen this group of guys play together. And, you just never know, where sometimes we've seen teams beat up on teams in the regular season, then in the playoffs, it's a different story, right? I mean, we've mentioned it 100 times, but we picked the Phoenix Suns to beat the Minnesota Timberwolves a few years ago when they swept the Wolves in the regular season. Then it was the complete opposite. So more so really impressed by the Spurs and just their overall approach to the season. And I'm just really curious how the rest of it goes, because I don't really think they should feel any pressure to make any moves. This is a year where you kind of just go through the team and kind of see what everything's like, who fits, right? Fox has been great since he's been healthy, right? Wemby obviously nursing that calf injury coming off the benches. A lot of really good signs for this team. And I mean, now they've won 8 in a row, 9-1 in their last 10. They're currently a full game up for the 2 seed. So things are looking bright in San Antonio right now.
Yeah, I'm gonna keep this short and sweet. I watched a video earlier today. Actually, it was by Kenny. Everybody knows who that is, and I think he put it very eloquently, right? He basically said this means everything and nothing at the same time, right? Because it's the regular season, take it with a grain of salt. But there is something to be said about this matchup. It seems like the Spurs, in theory, have figured out Oklahoma City, right? They're exposing some very serious flaws, I think, on both ends of the floor with this team, specifically, I think, on the offensive end, right? We already know how good defensively Oklahoma City is, but offensively, there are some glaring issues, right? If you take Shea out of the game, is there going to be a guy that can really step up and actually do something? And I think, in these matchups, we haven't really seen it, right? Chet, I'm not going to say a non-factor, but very minuscule in terms of, translating to a win against a team like this, right? Same thing with J-Dub. So that's the problem, right? And in my opinion, I think if Shea has a great, typical SGA game, right, where it's, 33 or 30 plus points, I think they might come out on top on this one. Maybe that's a long shot, but in my opinion, he has to play better, and the other guys do as well. But like you said, shout out to the Spurs because they have a winning formula, especially against this team, right? They're taking it very seriously, of course. But to me, doesn't really mean a whole lot because it is the regular season. But it definitely is something to keep your eye on for sure because, it's a young, hungry, up-and-coming team, and they obviously have a generational talent in Wemby, but the guy is on a minutes restriction. So you can't really, peg that as the issue, for Oklahoma City. So there is something, I think, to be said that they do have some issues to figure out.
Yeah, now I found it funny when when the top team starts losing games, they start saying, "Oh, it doesn't matter because it's the regular season." In a sense, it does. In a sense, it doesn't. Just because the San Antonio Spurs figured out the Oklahoma City Thunder. Is anything going to change in the postseason? I get the experience, like that plays a factor, but they still got a lot of veterans over there. De'Aaron Fox literally destroyed the Oklahoma City Thunder. Harrison Barnes is still a vet. They still have vets over there that have all the experience, that have been in championship games and stuff like that. So I'm not even worried about that. The problem is I'm seeing people say, oh, OKC is never going to have a bad shooting game. No, the Spurs figured you out. The first game, they shot 9 for 37 from the three-point line. Okay, cool. That's never going to happen again. Oh, really? Then they shot 11 for 44 the next game. So, and then they're going to be like, nah, that was just a flaw. Then the next game, they shot 12 for 30. So that's 3 games in a row where they shot horrible. You brought up a good point in J-Dub and Chet. Nobody can create their own shot outside of Shea. J-Dub, ever since he's been coming back, they've been awful. Simple as that. It's the same thing with the Lakers they're dealing with LeBron coming back, and trust me, LeBron, we'll get to that point. But they just haven't been winning games, right? Mm-hmm. I believe they're like 2-4 in their last 6 games. So it's not just the San Antonio Spurs. They've been losing other games as well. Like, I think this team is obviously the favorite to win. But I'm telling you right now, the OKC doesn't want to see the Spurs in the postseason. Those are matchups you want to avoid. There's certain matchups you want to avoid. Even if you're the favorite, you just want to avoid that. OKC was the favorite. They were negative 400, meaning they came into this game like the odds is like, we got this. We ain't losing to them back-to-back, and that's what they did. So I think with that, no shooting, no spacing right now. And people are saying, oh, Shea should just play better. The defensive pressure coming from Castle, Harper, De'Aaron Fox is making Shea play not the best basketball that we all know. If you notice, the teams that OKC struggle against is young, athletic teams. Look at the Pacers. Tyrese Halliburton never gets hurt. Who knows who wins the championship? But what they got over there, they got Nembhard, they got the Neesmiths, they got Mathurin. They just got people that just want to annoy you. And if you get annoyed, that's what OKC does, right? They throw the Dortz at you, the Case and Wallace at you. They just want to annoy you, the Carusos. So those teams are now doing it back to OKC. And now they're going into zone defenses, and now they can't hit shots outside of Shea. And they're forcing Shea to take horrible shots, some that go in because he's a good player, some that are not. And so when you have a big lineup of Wemby and Cornette, they were dominating teams with Chet and Isaiah Hartenstein. So the Spurs have every answer to what OKC has been doing to other teams. The problem is not every team's the San Antonio Spurs. The problem is not everybody has a 7'4", 7'5" monster on your team.
Right.
Mind you, he hasn't even played that well, in my opinion. He's just on the minute restriction. He's doing what he got to do. And you haven't really unleashed him. And they're still winning games. So I'm proud of this team. Last thing I'll say is no one even thought the San Antonio Spurs will be in this spot. Exactly. So the fact that they are in this spot and they beat the Oklahoma City Thunder 3 times in a row, I'm coming away with something. And I'm going to give them the respect. And I can't wait for the postseason because if they play each other, I'm going against you and Khristopher because I got the Spurs in 6.
That's fine. We'll see when it gets there. But I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just feel like we've seen Oklahoma City win a title, right? Like that's number one, in terms of what you need to do as a team to prove yourself, right, in this league. And I think the Spurs haven't necessarily proven a whole lot. It's the regular season, right? And like Chris already said, we've gone based on the regular season before, and I'm never doing that again. I don't care what team it is, right? Like, what's up?
Man, Knicks Celtics. Celtics.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, and whenever a team is coming off the championship, there are heightened expectations. There's always, you have the target on your back. And I think that's what's going on here. Every loss that this team is going to have is going to be blown out of proportion, right? Unfortunately. What up?
But Yarby, the thing is, though, it's not us. It's them. Because now they're getting cocky. That's the problem.
Cocky?
Just a few weeks ago, J-Dub said, yo, we could beat the Jordans. We could beat the Golden States back in the day. We could beat anybody. That was just a couple of weeks ago, and now they've been losing since. So it's not even that us, like, yes, football team, basketball team, whatever it is, when you're the best, you're going to get criticized for every loss. But we start more nitpicking every loss now when you start coming out and like, LeBron, Jordan, we better than them. What? Kareem? That's what they're doing, right? Like they're no longer like that fun, gritty team. And they're coming unlikable because they have dirty players. You got Lou Dort trying to injure players.
Okay.
I literally watched
Lou Dort is garbage right now. This season he's
100%. But I witnessed Lou Dort try to injure Wemby yesterday. He's a dirty player. He goes for knees, bro. That's not basketball. You could play defense all you want, but when you start going for knees, that's understand. Knowing Wemby's 7'5", knowing you could take his legs out in 2 seconds. You know that. But like I said, OKC's probably still the favorites. There's the best team in the league still to this day. I just feel like there's certain matchups you want to avoid. You don't want to see this team early. That's all I'm saying. Spurs have their top guys don't have the experience. OKC does. But like I said, I don't want to see the Spurs if I'm any team.
Yeah, and that's the cool thing about them is like they're in these games, their role players have been better than OKC's role players, honestly, in all these games. Like Barnes wasn't great in the cup game, but like in this game and I think in the last matchup, he played his role in terms of knocking down all these open threes.
Keldon Johnson.
Dylan Harper. Yeah, Vassell wasn't as great offensively in this game, but like he's one of the guys that's guarding SGA. It's giving him a tough time. So
when the number 2 pick is coming off the bench, you're low key deep. That's crazy, bro.
Yeah, exactly. Because for any of the other teams that he would have been drafted to in that top group, he would have immediately been a starter, right? Because like even like say Dallas, like if they had drafted, Dallas had like the number 2 or 3 pick and they took Harper, right? He'd be starting for sure, especially with Kyrie out. So
big time.
So now we'll get to the next and what I think was probably the best Christmas game. And this was Wolves Nuggets. Now, it didn't necessarily look that way the whole game, right? Because it's funny because I believe that Minnesota, I think, was a 1 point favorite, if I'm not mistaken. Or Denver was a 1 point favorite because they were at home. Even though they've been down multiple starters. They lost Cam Johnson against the Mavs in a game which they lost by 1 in the fourth quarter. But they built up a big lead at home. And then they ended up blowing the lead, right? Obviously, Ant and Randall sparked a huge comeback. I mean, when you're down multiple starters, like, you're going to have stretches where you're probably going to be fatigued. The Wolves were playing defense, getting back into the game. And then the Nuggets were able to pull it out in overtime. Jokic had 56, 15 and 16, 15 of 21 from the field, 4 of 6 from 3, 22 of 23 from the free throw line. Didn't love, like, the fact that for most of the latter part of OT, we were just watching free throws. I get there were a big chunk of them that were intentional fouls, but just in general, that part was kind of tricky. But it's funny because when we were going into this season talking about the MVP race, right? Like, I know you joined later, but both Yarby and I had Jokic winning the MVP, and we were kind of making the case where it's like, okay, last year SGA won it. Like, we both felt like he should have won it. But a lot of people were making the case that Jokic should have won it, right? So going into the season, because the team has improved, people have higher expectations of Denver compared to last year. Everybody's like, okay, the stage is set for him to be able to, if their records are close, which people would expect to be a little bit closer, maybe he's got a chance to win MVP. And, now with all these guys out, and Denver's still been winning games. They're 8-2 in the last 10. It might be his to lose, at least as of right now, especially with OKC dropping these last few games. And then also, just when you look at Denver, Jamal Murray, just what a superhuman guy he's been this season, where he's kind of, at least so far, like, answered any questions that somebody would have had about him, right? Because we're always like, okay, we've seen what you do in the playoffs. Can you do it in the regular season, right? Everybody was talking about he needs to be in better shape going into the season. And this year, 25 points, 7 assists, 4 rebounds, 49 from the field, 46 from 3. Just great performances all around from him. And he and Jokic have, by and large, been the two guys that have carried Denver for this stretch, while these other guys have been out. They have had some good performances from some of the role players at times, like a Peyton Watson or a Tim Hardaway Jr., or Spencer Jones even in some of these games, or Bruce Brown. But it is really impressive, just considering we know how hard it can be sometimes when you're down multiple guys against a Wolves team that is also really good. And for the most part, they have their whole rotation of guys available in this game. Tough loss for Minnesota, where, it's kind of one of those examples of, we saw them get a clutch win against OKC, but then we saw them bungle away a game against Denver where they had a 9-point lead in overtime, right? So it's just an example of, it's another team where the Wolves, they're not that far away. They do need another guy in the rotation. We know they miss Nickeil Alexander-Walker, right? Like, some of the other guys off the bench just haven't necessarily been able to replace his production, right? Like a Terrence Shannon Jr. or, Dillingham they don't play the same position, right? But, we would like for him to be a little bit more playable, and he got a DNP in this game, so not necessarily that amazing. But at least for the Nuggets, right? This is kind of the argument for why, if you feel like that they're one of the teams that could take down OKC, the main argument for them is their offense, because offensively they've been, one of the best teams ever. And defensively, at least last year, they did cause some problems for OKC with their zone. So if you can get, like, this version of Jokic and Murray, where, like, Jokic is basically having a career year, Murray's having a career year, eventually they'll get Aaron Gordon and Christian Brown and Cam Johnson back. Hopefully, I mean, they've been kind of cursed, but they've been playing really well, and just that game in general. And shout out to Ant, right? Because I know he had, like, a couple of rough possessions late in overtime, but just he's kind of gone under the radar, as have the Wolves for most of the season, just because of the fact that, we kind of figured that they'd be a little bit worse, but, I mean, they're not too far off, right? They're the 5 seed right now, and they'll probably finish probably somewhere in the top 4, if I had to guess again, just given, how they've been playing and where they kind of rank with some of these teams. So, but just in general, like Denver, shout out to Jokic and Murray, because those guys have been absolute monsters this season, in terms of, like I said, they're the reason why they're able to stay afloat despite all these injuries. Like I said, in addition to some of these bench guys.
Bro, it feels like we're watching 2023 all over again with this Nuggets team, right? Like, if you picked the Nuggets to win the title, I'm pretty sure you did, right?
Yes,
This would be the exact reason why, right? Like you talked about, Jokic is just on a tear, and then Jamal Murray back to what we know him as, and what he can be in the postseason, and showing that off in the regular season is wild. And honestly, I don't even know if he's going to make the All Star team. Like that, that's unfortunate, but hopefully he should. In my opinion, I think he's earned it, but we might be looking at another year where Jamal Murray's not an all-star, but he's playing at or above that level, right? So shout out to him, shout out to Jokic, and they've been doing this shorthanded, right? And then you look at Minnesota, it's like you said, they are missing a piece, but the ascension of Ant has been amazing, right? This season, it hasn't necessarily been talked about too much because of the woes of the team. I think if they were winning a little bit more, yeah, they'd probably be getting the hype that they got, against Oklahoma City, probably every single night, considering how well Ant has played. But, there are some glaring problems with that roster, and it always starts at the point guard. Feel like a, broken record talking about that issue over there. But, in this game, I think it was a banger. It was definitely a banger, right? We had a great fourth quarter, great overtime period. Like you said, free throws were a little annoying, but the clutch shots, the great moments that we got from, all the superstars involved, and including Jamal Murray, because I think that guy's a superstar. So, shout out to the NBA, and shout out to, just both these teams for giving us a banger.
Yeah, this is a bad loss for Minnesota. They had three starters out. You can't lose this game. I do think Jamal Murray's an all-star this year, and if he's not, then the all-star voting stuff is just dumb, and we don't need that to happen. And to be honest with you, and if there's probably going to be injury, so he'd probably be an alternate. But that's just like, yeah, you could have had the large cookie, but now we're just gonna give it a small. Like, it's something I can't come up with an example, but you know what I mean. Yeah, he's an all-star for sure. But now this is Jokic's MVP. What he's doing with this roster and what he's doing with this team currently, with three starters out and Aaron Gordon, Christian Braun, and Cam Johnson, is just amazing, right? Like, having 56, 16, and 15 as a center is just plain amazing right there, right? Like, when you look at this team, like, if you don't watch basketball, Spencer Jones, probably never heard of him, right? Tim Hardaway Jr., cool, and then Peyton Watson. He's more known, but some people probably don't know who he is, right? So you have 3 out of 5 players on this roster, and then you look at the bench unit, who's Zeke Naji, not good, Jonas, Bruce Brown, and Julius Strawther, right? Like, overall, when the team's healthy, they have good depth, but when everybody's injured, they don't have good depth, and Jokic always finds a way to get buckets. And it just shows you how talented he is, because and honestly, for the Minnesota Timberwolves, Rudy Gobert just must be upset, because every matchup that he plays against Jokic, he never wins. Just never. Like, he just goes out there and is like, he comes into work knowing he's gonna get his butt kicked. That's it, and there's nothing you can do about it. You know how frustrating that must be, knowing that you can't do nothing. It doesn't matter if you know what I'm saying. So, but I do think it was fun to see Rando and Ant do their thing. Minnesota was hot before this game, right? They were like 8-2. No, they were 7-3. They started to pick up a little bit more steam. I do think they're going to take that 4th seed from the Los Angeles Lakers. I think the Lakers are going to start losing a little bit more games. But they got to find a move. I'm hearing that they're linked to Kobe White. There's another player, I think Simons, and I believe there's another player, but I think a low-key move can help them out a little bit more. I do think Bones Highland has been playing a little bit better, but like today he was a +7. Well, last night he was a +7. Typically you don't see that from Bones. Like, he's more of a negative in the plus-minus, but he has been playing a little bit better. So if you can get Bones going and maybe another guard and help this team out a little bit more, that would definitely help them out. Last thing I will say, I think OKC wants Denver more than the San Antonio Spurs. A lot of people are going to be like, you're crazy for that, but I think OKC matches well with Denver. Denver doesn't match well with OKC at all. Just because, one, Christian Braun is the most overrated defender in the league. That's just straight up fact. I watched him all last year when he was for Russ. Overrated as hell. He's too inconsistent at the 3-point line. Cam Johnson just hasn't played well this year, and I don't see him turning around later in the postseason. It gets a little bit harder. So it's like, we all know Tim Hardaway Jr. can be the most streakiest shooter in the world. This dude can go from 7 threes to going 0 for 10. Like, that's what he does, right? Bruce Brown's not a great 3-point shooter. So I think that matchup for Denver, you don't want that. And also for Minnesota, obviously, that's not a good matchup. So overall, I thought this was a good game. keep basketball on Christmas and take football out of Christmas.
Agreed.
It doesn't belong. It doesn't belong. Christmas
Yeah.
is for basketball. That's it.
I agree. Felt
Yeah,
completely
I
out of
think
place.
yeah, I think the NBA showed, why Christmas is their day. And yeah, well, like when you look at Denver's depth, like that's the thing with like a Tim Hardaway Jr., like when they're fully healthy, he's coming off the bench, he won't be starting. He's not probably going to play like 35 minutes in a game. But it is kind of funny just in terms of the matchups, right? Cuz like Denver, they did take OKC to 7 games last year, right? With the group that they had, those a worse team. But it is funny, like looking back, right? Because like a lot of people kind of were making the argument that like Cam Johnson was just a better player than Michael Porter Jr. And I remember like when Yarby and I, when we were talking about that trade at the time, I think I was kind of like, I think Porter probably has the higher ceiling, right? And like probably and would be more so the better player. Maybe you might feel like Johnson has a higher floor just because like you might like some of the things he does defensively or moving the ball around. But Michael Porter Jr. has been playing really well for Brooklyn this year. So I do kind of wonder how that. But like just in general, Denver did that to have a more balanced roster, just so that way they could add, more flexibility and optionality. Like that's what they wanted. Like they don't have to make a trade, but like it's easier for them to do something at the deadline. Like they could just be like, all right, we know nobody really wants Zeke Naji, but like we could take him and whatever else, maybe flip him for something. Or I think they can use their MLE like as an exception. Like I don't know if they have a ton of picks, but like they could do something. They don't necessarily have to because they're really good, but just in general, like you can see like it's more so it just gave them more options, right? I don't necessarily think that Johnson is better. He's been playing better recently, but then obviously he got hurt. And that was the other thing because people were kind of talking about durability, but it was like it's actually been MPJ that's played more games over the last few seasons than Cam Johnson, right? It wasn't like that earlier in their careers, but it actually has been the opposite since then. But I still like this team, and I think when they're fully healthy, they're going to be, I think, about as dangerous as pretty much anyone else in the West outside of Oklahoma City.
Can I say one more thing?
Yep.
Yeah. Why is Joe Ingles still in the NBA?
Seriously. I think it's just like he's one of those guys like where he's just got good relationships, I think, with players. You know how like sometimes teams will have like guys that are on the end of the bench who don't really play a whole lot. They're kind of more so locker room guys. Yeah, exactly. Like I think he's just one of those guys where like people like to have him around. If anything, like he could even be like a guy who could help out some of the young players, right? Because like at one time he was a guy that like got into the league, for being, kind of like a versatile all around role player. So I mean I feel like that's what he's around for. I mean like it's not like it's not like it's not like Minnesota probably missed out on anybody by signing him. You know what I mean? Like I think it's just like we have an open roster spot. Just bring him in for the vibes and the locker room and everything. Like you just need guys like that on a lot of teams, So like even like a Kenrich Williams, right? Like I mean, I'm not saying he's bad necessarily, but it's just like that's a guy where like he could not play at all, even though like they plug him in sometimes. But he's also a guy where it's like, yeah, I was here when the team was really bad, and I was actually starting and playing a lot. Now I can kind of drop some wisdom on some of these other guys, in terms of just how to do certain things and how to be a professional in a certain way, right? So like I think that's just kind of the value there. You know what I mean? Like I don't think they were really missing out on anyone. Like they can still make trades. It's not like they lost the option to do anything because they signed Joe Ingles. So, but
I mean, I was just about like, he's just terrible.
Yeah, he's not the same player anymore. So he's like I said, he's a locker room guy now. So, but I guess we might as well move into probably the funniest game. No, I know that face, but we're gonna talk about the funniest game, Lakers Rockets, because this was a game where both teams came into the game probably not necessarily playing their best basketball, right? We'll leave it at that. For Houston, obviously they got some guys back recently, right? Like Eason, he came back. Now he's in the starting 5, which I actually kind of like, at least in terms of what it looked like. Yeah, what it looked like in that game. Now maybe it's because who they were playing, but just like in general, like I actually liked the fit of that more so than say like an Okogie. Dorian Finney-Smith, he came back. I had no idea he was coming back in this game because I don't feel like we got any reporting on it until Shams put it out there. But he was out there, so now they have most of their full crop of guys, and they were able to break their bad habits or whatever, right? Because they had, because in some of the last few games I was watching them, right, like they had some performances where, what was it? It was like the Clippers performance where Udoka was calling them out. They had the Pelicans game. They had the loss, I think, to Sacramento. But, in this game, they were able to snap right out of it, right? Like in the ways where if you're the Rockets, you're encouraged, right? Because on both ends of the floor, they played really well, right? Like defensively, they were pretty much taking away anything that LA wanted to do, right? Like Luka, you're not necessarily just going to be able to get anywhere you want. You're going to have to kind of be forced, like you were talking about with SGA, you're going to have to be forced into taking some really difficult shots. We're going to pressure you and pick you up, force you to turn the ball over, right? Lakers turn the ball over a ton. In terms of their size, beat them up on the boards, right? Get a bunch of offensive rebounds using the double bigs, Alperen Şengün, Steven Adams, all the things we talked about that you and I liked about Houston going into the year, right? Kevin Durant, right? Like just kind of taking advantage of the very switch happy Lakers defense for whatever reason, where it's like, okay, well, you're just gonna allow Luka to just get switched on to Kevin Durant and not have the other guy fight over the switch. Okay, we'll do that too. So just overall, just like a really impressive performance from Houston, and just offensively as a whole, like they've been way better than I kind of thought on the offensive end going into the season, because I figured defensively they were going to be good, right? But on the offensive end, like they've been one of the better 3-point shooting teams. Everybody's talked about that. Um, Even though they don't take a lot of threes, but just the pressure that they put on teams around the basket, where you got like a guy like an Amen Thompson who can just attack the basket, right? And then that kind of opens the door, right, for these other 3-point shots, right? Like a Kevin Durant or a Jabari Smith Jr., where he gets these nice catch and shoot opportunities where he can just easily rise up, get into his shot, and it looks smooth. Late in games, sometimes it can get kind of ugly, right? They've had, even in that game, even though they blew them out, right? They had a couple of stretches where the offense kind of died, and that kind of allowed the Lakers to get back into the game. But in this game, pretty much loved everything that Houston did. Can't really say that. Can't really say the same for the Lakers. To be honest, I don't know about you guys. I kind of expected the Lakers to get dog walked in this game just because I felt like it's not a great matchup. They've not been playing well. Clearly, they've had an issue with the bigger, more athletic teams. These are things we knew going into the season. Now, obviously, it's going to be even more dark, right? Because Austin Reeves got hurt in the game. Right before we got on, we heard that he's going to be out at least a month with a calf injury, and it's the same calf injury, I'm assuming, that's been bugging him for this last few weeks or whatever, right? Because he missed a week or so with the calf. He missed some games earlier in the season, I think, due to a groin injury. So that's not great. The main positive, I guess, is we got to see Durant and LeBron again. Don't know how many games we'll see of those two guys. And then obviously Redick was not very happy after the game, right? I'm sure everybody saw the clips of him kind of just talking about the team and saying like, yeah, these guys don't want to do anything. They don't want to, play hard or whatever it was he said. But yeah, that's kind of an example of, I think the way they were playing earlier in the season is probably better than what you probably would have expected, right? It was a lot of games where they're in these close games, but they're able to pull it out. They've gotten blown out in most of their last several games, right? And it's not really been that close or competitive. So now you're kind of left with, now Reeves is out. What can you really do? Like, I mean, you can't really do a whole lot because you don't have a guy that you can kind of just step in and just say, all right, here's his replacement. And I know everybody's been talking about the defense, but have you noticed that their offense hasn't necessarily looked all that great recently either? Like in these last few games, they've not even reached 100 points. Even in some of these games where like 2 or 3 of the guys have played, where it's just a lot of ugly possessions, like a lot of turnovers. And it's kind of funny because going into the season, I know some people talked about it. I didn't really think of them going into the season as like a bad 3-point shooting team just because of some of the personnel at the top of the roster, but they've not really been a particularly good 3-point shooting team either, right? They've actually been one of the worst, both in terms of volume and in terms of percentages, right? They're under 35% from 3, and they do take a lot of tough contested threes, and then there's a lot of guys who just are not great 3-point shooters. Jared Vanderbilt was their best 3-point shooter in that game, and that was because he was basically left wide open, right? That's by design. So with the Reeves injury, that probably would knock them down a decent chunk in the standings now, because I don't really see how you can really make up for the offense. And it's not like you can just say, we'll slide somebody else in. It'll make our defense better, and then our offense might just be good enough. I think that's going to be really tough sailing, because I just think Reeves is too important to their offensive attack just because of the 3 guys. He's the guy that attacks with speed a little bit more so, right? Like LeBron can play with speed off the ball, not necessarily on the ball as much. So that's kind of a tough way to go out, right? And like Luka's not really played as well recently. I think he's been dealing with an injury. So it's all bad vibes for them now, right? Like a lot of the good vibes they were having earlier in the season are kind of gone. But to be fair, you nor I didn't really have them as a championship team anyways, right? We more so had them as a team that maybe is like a puncher's chance in the mix, but probably just not good enough, especially on the defensive end. So it's like, is it shocking that they're probably not quite as great as we thought? Like, no, not necessarily. It's just tough because now you're going to be without Reeves, and especially for him, contract year could have potentially been an all-star. That's pretty much dead now because he's going to miss too many games. Because you're talking about a month. I mean, that's at least like what, 10 games, something like that. So pretty bad, pretty rough for him, and rough for the team as a whole.
Yeah. I'm gonna keep it short. Lakers wise, they suck.
Yeah.
I'm gonna let Top Notch, handle the Lakers, but I do want to talk Houston a little bit because I think this is a great bounce back for them. They've had a awkward season. I think the losses that they've had have been very very glaring because they've lost to some teams that they definitely shouldn't have, right? And I think the pairing of KD and Şengün hasn't been, super seamless. I think there's been high moments, but there's definitely been some low moments for sure. But in this game, I think, you kind of see the recipe for success, right? KD is a calming presence to a lot of these young guys. You have Amin Thompson when he's aggressive and when he's, just pretty much obliterating the rim every time. I mean, that's all you could really ask for alongside, what that team has defensively, right? We saw them really, really make it tough for Luka, especially in terms of turnovers, right? I mean, like, normally those are easy passes for Luka, right? But I think, what Houston can provide in the passing lanes and also just kind of making it uncomfortable for him is special, right? And you adding in Tari Eason in the starting lineup is one of the factors for that, right? But, Jabari Smith Jr., I think his development has been pretty good, right? And I've kind of continued to talk about this. I think, having KD on the team with him is pretty special because I think there's things that he can take from him and learn from him. But, once they figure things out, I think in terms of like the bench and, the right, lineups to put out there, especially, in meaningful games, I think this is a team where you kind of just have to say they're arguably a top 3 team if they do have it going. But I need to see a little bit more. And I know it's kind of crazy to say at this point in the season, but it is the Lakers and this team just clearly is not that good. And I think a lot of people expected, Houston to win this, but shout out to the Rockets. And, I think they're figuring it out slowly but surely. And, hopefully they figure it out by the postseason because they're definitely going to need to.
Yeah.
Gotta call it Khristopher for a sec, my man. You said a lot of things, but I didn't hear one thing about LeBron James. I didn't hear one thing about LeBron James.
Okay.
LeBron James is a big reason why this team is struggling. Let's get this straight. LeBron James is a negative at this point of his career. A negative. He doesn't box out, doesn't play defense. Offensively, isn't that great. Can't shoot the 3 ball that well. I watched him against Houston. Literally watched them get offensive rebounds every single possession. And it's not just LeBron. We're going to get to everybody else. But he's the leader. So the leader, we're watching the leader not do it. Why am I going to do it? They have no effort out there. They don't try. Another thing is, JJ Redick is a fraud coach. He does a lot of talking, but doesn't do no adjustments at all. That starting lineup, we talked about this, Khristopher, probably a couple weeks ago. Starting lineup can't work out, needs to be fixed now. But guess what? JJ Redick doesn't want to change it. You know what he wants to do? He wants to get the media's attention and continues to keep calling out his players like a sucker. Oh, this is gonna be this is gonna be uncomfortable conversation. Oh, Saturday, this and that. How about you be a coach and change the rotation? Why don't you start playing Jared Vanderbilt more, knowing you're a terrible defensive team? But no. You don't want to do that though, right? Then your starting lineup doesn't gel together. There's a reason why Rui had 0 points yesterday. Your starting lineup doesn't play defense. You have top 3 in LeBron, Luka, AR, terrible defenders. DeAndre Ayton soft like a pillow. So now you have 4 or 5 players right there that don't play no defense. Okay, cool. Offensively, Luka, no one wants to talk about this. Luka been bad. You know why Luka been bad? It's because he can't play with LeBron. LeBron and Luka cannot play together. Luka and AR can play together. When you look at their plus minus offensively, the net rating, they can play together. When you add LeBron to that, it's all negative. Like I said, bad starting lineup, then you have no depth. You look at that bench unit, you can't name a player on that bench unit that has done something productive in their NBA career outside of Marcus Smart. That bench is awful. You got Bronny freaking James. Bronny James. You got Jake LaRavia, who started the season off hot and can't hit a shot now. He's also said there's a disconnect in the locker room. Oh, there's a disconnect in the locker room. I wonder why. You know why? Because Rich Paul went on a podcast and said the Lakers are not a contender, which is cool. I don't see that as a problem. But they know that's LeBron's agent, and LeBron is saying the same thing, and the players feel that. They know that. Another thing, the Lakers played well early is because they had an easy schedule. No one wants to talk. They played the Utah Jazz 3 times in a row. Played the Sacramento Kings. They played the Dallas Mavericks. They played bad teams, so they stacked up W's. Luka and AR went bananas. You couldn't stop them. You couldn't. So they have so many flaws. They have so many problems. Can't rebound, can't shoot, can't play defense, have a fraud head coach, and have no depth. A trade doesn't change anything. You can get Herb Jones. It doesn't matter. It's not going to change anything. It won't. So I'm interested to see with AR being out, does he start Marcus Smart? That should be the ideal choice. But then again, this is JJ Redick, and he's going to be trying to do something stupid and somehow start Jake LaRavia or Bronny James, because that's what JJ Redick does. Dumb decisions. Darvin Ham was garbage, but at least he changed the rotation and the starting lineup every game that they started struggling.
A little bit too much, maybe.
Yeah, a little bit too much.
Yeah, and Austin Reeves coming off the bench. Well, actually, it was Austin and D'Lo.
That's what I'm saying, bro. But I agree. I agree with
the
that.
last thing I will say, though, right? The Lakers are ranked 24th in defense. That's cool. My thing is, Jared Vanderbilt's not a great three-point shooter, but the craziest thing is, looking at his three-point percentage, he has the highest. I think he's the second highest on the team.
40%, baby.
Which is pathetic.
40%, baby.
Pathetic. I think Rui has the highest.
Yeah, his is dropped.
Vanderbilt has the second highest.
Yeah.
So there's a problem there. But Jared Vanderbilt showed yesterday why he should play. We understand his weaknesses, but as a head coach, listen, I'm a head coach myself. I coach varsity basketball. As a head coach, you should know your weaknesses from your players, and you find spots for them to play. You don't just go say, okay, let's bench him, knowing you already don't have a good team. You already don't have depth. It's different if you look at the San Antonio Spurs and be like, yo, we can't play Jeremy Shohan today because we got 4 players better than him. When you look at the Lakers, who's better than Jared Vanderbilt coming off that bench? Maxi Kleber?
My guy.
Be real.
Rui had 0, bro.
Yeah. And that's not the first time. But again, like, and it's funny, right? Because, like, I think when LeBron first came back, we were talking about, like, oh, yeah, Vando, he didn't play because he's not been good, right? And that's kind of like, and that's the issue that you have, where, like, you don't know what you're gonna get from a lot of those guys. Where, like, you know, Vanderbilt, he's shooting 40% from 3. They're all wide open in the corner, but he's being left open because, you know, they don't really trust that he can make them. So it's just kind of funny because, like I said, that was one thing that I actually did. I did not expect them to be a bad 3-point shooting team this year. Like, I expected them to be good offensively and bad on defense. I didn't think about the 3-point shooting, but you do look at the roster and you do kind of ask yourself, like, how many guys on this roster are actually really good 3-point shooters? And some of them have shot below probably what you'd expect, but then there's other guys where it's like, we know you can't really shoot threes, buddy, right? Like, and like, but it is kind of funny. So what did you think? What did you guys think of, like, the Eason and the starting 5, like, for Houston? Because because he hadn't started a game, I don't think, all year, right? Like, he was coming off the bench, then he got hurt for a long time. Almost like he just forgot he was on the team.
Okay.
And now he's in the starting 5. And I actually do like that relative to Okogie, just because I know Okogie can occasionally hit outside threes, but it's like a Vando thing where it's like, nobody cares if you shoot 40% from 3 because we're not going to guard you. And just in the playoffs, I don't necessarily know how comfortable I would feel about that. I know Eason's kind of injury prone. I know sometimes he plays a little out of control, but just in general, he's a better player. And it's not like functionally his role is going to be that much different than a Kogi. And I think he can do some things better. Plus, it's just having a guy that like you do have to guard because he can put the ball on the floor and drive. Like that helps Thompson. And then that might help downstream, right? Where like then all of a sudden you can have these extra units where second units where say Thompson is running the show and you got like just one other guy that can't really shoot and space the floor, right? Like say compared to the Lakers where they might play 2, 3, 4 guys where it's like we don't care about you at all. So like what did you guys think about that decision? Because that actually got me excited.
Well, I think it's great because I think sometimes you need a guy that can kind of just create havoc on both ends of the floor. And,
Right.
sometimes I think he can be accused of, getting himself and maybe the team out of rhythm, right? But I think, the best version. Yeah, exactly. But I think the best version of him offensively is when Şengün has the ball in his hands and everybody becomes a cutter. And I think he's just as good of a cutter, as Thompson, right, in terms of the feel and the timing, right? He has the athletic ability to kind of just go up and dunk as well, right? And defensively, we all know what he's able to do in terms of steals. He makes things, very uncomfortable for some of the top players in the league. But there's trade-offs with a guy like that, and I think that's why they're putting him out there. But I mean, that is low-key a guy who is, I guess, or was in some trade rumors here and there. So I don't know. Yeah. So I don't know if they're trying to rehab his value a little bit here, but in my opinion, I think it's a smart move to start him because I think he's a little bit more versatile and he does bring, I think, a little bit more to the game, than a Kogi, right? Because we all know that guy can't really shoot, whereas Eason is a pretty good, spot up shooter, especially from the corner.
I think Okogie's a bench guy. I don't think he's a starter.
I agree. I mean, it's a good different look, right? We talked about that when Okogie was put in there. I think it was a little bit better than I guess the super duper tall lineup they were going with, with double bigs or whatever, because he's a good defender. But I think Tari Eason fits a little bit better, as he should.
I feel like we can't judge the Rockets this game because you could throw any lineup in there. You could have thrown a Josh Okogie, Reed Shepherd, Clint Capella, Dorian Finney-Smith at the Lakers, and somehow they'll still win the game. That's how bad the Lakers are. But realistically, though, I love him starting. The defensive pressure that he put on the Lakers. I mean, 4 steals, 2 blocks. You love to see that type of stuff right there, right? And that's already having a Mem Thompson already in the starting line, who's a really good defender and stuff like that. So, I think it's a good thing. I just think Houston Rockets, they just gotta get better at shooting because like I'm still concerned about them heading in the postseason with lack of spacing. Just because Thompson's not a great shooter, Şengün is not a really great shooter. Jabari and KD are your best shooters. If Tari Eason can start hitting shots, I think you can be fine. But I like it though, right? The Rockets had to get back in the win column. Me and Yarby had the Rockets winning the West, and I changed my mind because I seen enough from them. You know what I mean?
Smart man.
I changed my mind for sure, and I'm going Minnesota. I don't think he was here. He was on vacation.
Yeah,
he was on vacation.
Wait,
I changed it to Minnesota.
Okay, fair.
I think you were here. I think you were here for that one because we were talking about all those games after. Because
I was like, I got Ant. He was like, I got Ant. Yeah, I remember.
Oh
I was here. Yeah, I was here for that.
And then I guess last question about Houston. So the crunch time offense. That's kind of a question that you have like going into the playoffs because they're not going to just be able to blow out everybody every single game. What do you do about that in terms of like what's kind of the issue going on then? Because like I said, that's the team that you picked to win it all. So just in general, like what do you think in terms of is it fixable with this group of guys? Do you think that it has to kind of come from maybe a smaller personnel move or like what is annoying to you? Because when I've watched them in some of those other games, like I know there was kind of a mix of like Dennis Schroeder and Russ hitting some weirdo threes and like defensively they had a couple of rough games, but the offense I think is kind of the main focus because it felt like a little tricky in a couple of those games because like in Denver, right, it was like Durant couldn't get a touch at all. He wasn't able to take any shots. Şengün had most of them, but then like in Sacramento, like Durant got more shot attempts, but now they're sending multiple guys his way, kind of trying to blitz him and force him to kind of like give it up. That might be like one of his offensive weaknesses, just in terms of like passing out of those traps. But like, what do you think?
From what I've seen, I'm confused, and I think the Rockets are confused too because I think this is the first time where KD in his career is probably number 2, right? I don't think this is KD's team. This is not like respectfully. I think the way that it's designed, the way that they run their offense, which is cool, right, is through Şengün, as it really should be. This is Şengün's team. Katie was brought in to kind of be, that calming presence to take pressure off of guys. But at the same time, it's Kevin freaking Durant. The simple solution is get the ball in that man's hands in crunch time, right? Like there's times when it's like, I don't want Şengün taking a freaking, layup attempt for game. Respectfully. I don't care if he's, pretty much wide open or if there's two guys there. I want KD to take a fader, pull up, something. I want KD to have the ball in his hands in the crunch time, and I think that's the problem. They're going through an identity crisis where I don't think they necessarily know who's really number one, and I don't know if that's because of leadership. I don't know if that's because of coaching, but at the end of the day, they need to figure it out, and I think we as fans know who should have the ball in their hands, especially in the fourth quarter, but maybe I'm just stupid.
Reed Shepherd.
Yeah, no. Shout out to Reed. He's been a good option for them off the bench, but no.
Yeah.
Nah, I think Jeff Green should be taking the last shot.
Right.
Max Callahan says, I want Andre Iguodala taking over Curry.
No.
Now, but realistically, it's simple. Give the ball to Kevin Durant.
Thank you. Okay,
Let's
I'm not
stop
stupid.
doing goofy stuff and trying to get Sengun in the post and hit the little post hook over the defender. Listen, when they need a three, they still going to Sengun, knowing KD is the better shooter.
Exactly.
Knowing KD is you can't guard KD. Yes, you could throw the traps and then maybe KD has to pass, but overall, give the ball to Kevin Durant. Make or miss, live with it. You live with Sengun's bull crap shots. Live with KD's bull crap shots.
Yeah, that's my point, bro.
Yeah, and I think that's like the one element of like where you do kind of miss like a Fred VanVleet, because I feel, and it's not that like he is not innocent in terms of taking some wild shots over the course of a game, but just having a guy like who can kind of be like, all right, this is what we're gonna do. Like I'm gonna get the ball, or I'm gonna get the ball to Durant or whomever it is in this spot. So that way they can get some touches over the course of, the fourth quarter. Say they're like down by 8 in the fourth quarter and they need to get a few buckets. And then VanVleet can be like, all right, we're going to get Durant a few middies here, right? Where he can kind of get to his spots or whatever. That's kind of like the element where you miss that. And instead it's been like a lot of just weird one-on-one basketball. It's just kind of weird, right? And they have like different options, right? Like, I mean, it's not necessarily that like you're excited about like, oh, we're going to have Amen Thompson just barrel his way down the lane for a game winner. But just in general, like you do have a number of different players that you could get a shot to late in the game. Even a guy like a Jabari Smith Jr., right? Like you could set up a play where it's like, hey, he's wide open for a corner three and just hit and just knocks it down because of the way he's been playing this year. So like it's just weird because you can say like, okay, they have a lot of options. But is that actually really a good thing when it's like, in general, like Durant's going to have to probably be the main guy late in games if they're going to actually get it done over the course of a long postseason run. So, but the good news is you're not in the playoffs just yet. So you still have time to kind of iron out all the kinks and they just put Tari Eason in the starting five. So they're already making changes. They just got to win some more games right now, right? Because ideally, they're still very close. It's not like they're the 6th seed and they're 10 games back. They're like half a game away from 4th. So as long as they can kind of get in the home court range, they'll probably be fine. I guess then the question would be like, which team do they match up better with, OKC or Denver? Because in the games they played against Denver, it seems like if it's a close game, it's kind of tough. Because like Denver can just spam Jokic and Murray 2-man game the entire fourth quarter, and Houston doesn't really seem to have an answer for that. But with OKC, if they can kind of slow down SGA, they might be able to have a chance where they can kind of wreak some havoc on the offensive end. Like, what do you guys think? Like, of those top teams, like, which one would you probably, and like, of course, like the playoffs haven't started yet, but just like, which team would you probably want to avoid the most if you're Houston?
Houston.
Like, or is it just the OKC by default?
I mean, probably OKC. Yeah, I would just go with them off rip just because of what they provide. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I feel like Houston was one of those teams where they were a little bit better equipped to handle a team like OKC. But I mean, clearly the Spurs have emerged, so maybe San Antonio or OKC, probably one of the two.
Man, Houston don't want to see neither of them. They're getting bounced out by both teams.
Well, I'm gonna stand with my boys. I'm picking Houston over everybody, but I mean, is that realistic? I don't know.
Yeah, I think I would just need to see them bring in another guy. Like I think if they can bring in another perimeter option, like then I think they could be in a spot where I think enough could go right where I could conceivably see them getting out of there. I think it may be a little bit trickier as currently constructed, but I just want to. But like you said, I want to see more with that starting five and see if they can find a group that they can stick with. Because obviously, like we know that teams can change up groups in the playoffs if things don't work out, but I would like to see one that they can just have and just stay with, right? Because in the beginning of the season they played Şengün and Adams together, right? Then like Adams is out and it's a Kogi in there, and now it's Tari Eason. So I feel like this might be the more ideal one, unless if you can get Reed Shepherd in there, but then you know is it like would you prefer that over Eason?
Yeah, I don't even know, dude. I'm gonna be so
Right.
real.
Yes. Yeah.
That's
So
their
we'll keep
problem
an
to
eye on
figure
them.
out.
Yeah, exactly. We don't get paid to do that, but we do get paid to talk about it. At least, well, not right now, but eventually.
Yo. Yo. Yeah, true.
So now we're gonna go into the next game. Might as well talk about.
Yo, Chris. Let,
Yeah,
let, let's get this Dallas and Golden State game out the way because they ain't
yeah,
much to talk about.
yeah. That's the one.
Yeah.
Golden State won. They've won 3 in a row. Cooper Flag was awesome. AD got hurt. Steph, I mean, he scored points. He's historically not been a great performer on Christmas. He got most of his buckets came around the basket. Butler had a good game. They had a bunch of guys off the bench. Dallas, not much going for them outside of Cooper Flag. Hopefully, AD's not out for long. I think Sham said he's got a groin injury out for at least a few games. But that one was kind of a middling game, I would say, right? Where like you knew Golden State was gonna win the game, but I just feel like it was kind of just a lot of just meh in the game. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I fell asleep on this game with eggnog in my hand, bro. I'm telling you, I was just not invested in this game. As soon as I saw Pods just jacking up threes and not hitting them whatsoever, I was like,
He was
oh.
cooking in the game, man,
I,
throwing
I mean,
lobs.
what? He was like, what? He shot 50%, but I'm just talking about from three. I'm a certified Pods hater, certified Warriors hater. I'm gonna be so real. So, seeing them kind of struggle all around while also, getting the dub was, I mean, kind of interesting. But it's like you
3 in
said,
a row, baby.
it's like you said,
Back
Steph,
above 500.
Steph did his thing, right? Like he shot the
Yeah,
ball a lot, cool. But shout out to Coop, man, because this guy has figured it out, and for the youngest player in the NBA, for him to just kind of keep getting better and better ever since he's not
mhm,
been at the point guard position. Shout out to him, and I
yeah.
think he's going to be a great
Playing
talent.
center.
He's been all over the place, all over the place.
Man, bro, the Warriors are just goofy to me. The Warriors are Warriors remind me of like the bad kids, like Draymond Green walking out of huddles, going into the locker room,
Yeah,
like yelling at the coach. Jimmy just being a weirdo, talking about something
yeah,
bro, like
yeah.
I just don't got time for the goofy Warriors, bro. Like I really don't. Like Steve Kerr is overrated, like as hell. Like Steph Curry is the only positive thing on that team.
Yep,
But the only thing I really got to say, Golden State's goofy. The Dallas Mavericks, they have a gem in Cooper Flag, and everybody else is trash.
agreed.
Anthony Davis can't even run up the court before he hurts his groin. Like it's just pathetic at this point. Like it's just like the bro's walking and he's hurt, and it's like it's a joke because Dallas was playing a little bit better, and then this dude just can't stay healthy. It's just like I don't know, bro. For Cooper Flag to deal with this for his rookie year is just pathetic, bro.
Yeah,
It really is. You know what I
AD's my
mean?
guy, but it's been rough. It's been rough.
yeah.
He's my guy, but it's
He's gone like freaking Cooper Flag has had a crazy rookie year, bro. Like all
yeah,
the things he's had to deal with, like being
Yeah.
thrown into the fire at point guard. Then the guy
yeah,
who drafts you gets fired, and you have
yeah.
all the expectations of like being the next Luca. It's like, what are we talking about, bro?
Expecting them to be good going into the season. Like that was the other thing.
Yeah.
You wanna hear a hot take? And we
Sure.
can go to the other game. Cooper Flag is gonna be an alternate all-star.
Mm.
Call right now.
Potential.
Yeah, I'm curious. Yeah, and that's going to be interesting to see because with some of these injuries and with some of these other teams, like say, like you're not going to see like a Harden probably. I don't think in the All Star game, just with the way that the Clippers have been playing. So I know that it's front court versus guard, but like just in general, like I think you will see a lot of new first time All Stars this year
Y'all
because
think Khan gets in there?
I think he just got hurt. Hopefully, it's not too
Well, never
bad, but
mind.
Well, I mean, he might be in the rookie game. I don't know if he'll be an East All-Star.
Dang.
I mean, I know the
Dude,
East is kind of funky, but like, I mean, I guess Giannis. Well, I mean, is he going to be healthy in time for that? I
no,
guess.
no. Giannis is not making the All-Star game. LeBron James is not making the All-Star game. Get these, they don't deserve to be an All-Star game. No, real stuff though. Like, if you want to invest me into the All-Star game, let me see Colin, let me see Cooper Flag, let me see some rookies go at it, right? Let me see Dylan Harper actually get an opportunity on the bright spot right on television, right? They're not going to do that because this is Adam Silver and this is the NBA and he's a terrible owner, whatever the hell he is. Just
Commissioner.
I don't know what he is, but
Will Norman Powell make the All-Star team this year?
Norman Powell, if he makes the All-Star game, I'm not watching it because I don't want to see a bootleg dude just walk up the court. I'm all set, bro. I'm good.
Oh man, because I know last year there were complaints about he should have been an All-Star, but I was just man, yeah, that game was the less said about it, the better. Like I said, it's nice to see Steph again. Cooper Flag was really good, but that's kind of the game where I'm like, if you fell asleep, if you were playing with whatever gifts you got, that was the time to do it, in my opinion.
For sure.
So, now we'll finish it off with the first game, actually, funny enough, which was it got better at the end, right? Obviously, for sure, right? It started off kind of rough, but this was the Knicks and the Cavs, and this was kind of a big game, right? Because obviously for the Knicks, they've been riding high, they've been playing great basketball, of course. And you look at them in their last 10 games, they're 8-2, right? They're 21-9, and then obviously from the Cavs side, it stinks because they were in control for the vast majority of this game. We got a Christmas surprise with Evan Mobley coming back in and playing, right? Which I did not expect at all, right? Because was like, has it been 2-3 weeks yet? I didn't think so. But either way, he came off the bench. He looked fine. But then in the fourth quarter, right, Cleveland's offense just was gone, right? So like a lot of the ball movement, a lot of the shot making, right, from guys like Jalen Tyson, right, who's leveled up this year and it has not mattered at all for whatever reason. That went away, and then the Knicks have done what they've done a lot this year, right? Where in the fourth quarter, you're not gonna be able to slow down their offense. I mean, led by their second unit too, right? Like Tyler Kolek, who's now kind of cemented himself in the Knicks rotation, right? Like that now, that's a guy where it's like, okay, you were able to kind of find a guy late in the draft that can be a part of your rotation, right? Like Mitchell Robinson getting every offensive rebound, just kind of a reminder of the first time they played Cleveland in the playoffs where he dominated against the Cavs bigs, right? Just being a real problem for them. And then even Jordan Clarkson, right, giving him some minutes. So, like, just the Knicks have kind of continued to show, like, why you have to talk about them as one of the, maybe even one of the top teams in the league, not necessarily just in the Eastern Conference, because they've been really good. And then for the Cavs, like, at the very least, you can say Mobley looked solid, right? Like, I mean, Mitchell still doing his thing. So maybe there's a little bit of hope where, like, okay, like they didn't just get completely trounced. Because I'm not going to lie, going into this game, I assumed Cleveland was just going to get curb stomped. Like, I thought it was going to be a really rough game just because I know they had won a couple in a row against some bad teams, but they hadn't played that well for the most part as of late, right? Like, because they're 4-6 in their last 10. But just, watching Brunson in the fourth quarter along with these second unit guys, especially battling back because they were down big early in the game. They were down, and then they were down 17 in the second half, right? So it wasn't like it was easy. It wasn't like this was an easy dub for the Knicks, but just in general, they've consistently continued to impress me on both ends of the floor. And now you just kind of wonder, right? Like, could they possibly challenge one of these teams out west? Because that's really the question. Because we know that they're good enough to be able to win the East, but can they actually be good enough to actually go all the way this year? And win their first title since the early 70s.
Yeah. Shout out to the Knicks, man. Shout out to Jalen Brunson. I think the problem with this team is Towns is a little up and downish. I mean, he has had moments where, he looks great, but, in this game definitely was not one of the stars out there for sure, right? It was definitely, more of a Jalen Brunson, Jordan Clarkson, and Tyler Kolek show, which is kind of wild to even say in one sentence, right? Yeah, right. But that
25.
Yeah, exactly.
Shout out to the Philippines.
Shout out to the Philippines, man. But
Yeah.
yeah, Jordan Clarkson, he was just sparking threes, bro. But yeah, once again, Jalen Brunson is the Knicks pretty much. Everybody else kind of fits in. And I've loved watching, every minute of basketball from them. Cleveland, though, I don't know what's wrong with this team. Like, there's no sense of cohesion. I don't know if they're missing like a wing guy or what, but like even Darius Garland in this game, I thought he played, much better than he has,
Yeah.
normally throughout the regular season. But I feel so bad for Donovan Mitchell, like, to be subjected to just loss after loss after loss when you're just averaging like
Yeah.
what 30 plus
30.
on great efficiency, right? It just really sucks. So I don't know what Cleveland does from here, because I think this was obviously clearly a winnable game. They were in control of it for the majority of it. Great finishing by the Knicks. So and this was
Great crowd too.
this is arguably the best game that we saw, but I don't know what Cleveland does from here. I think their season's pretty much over. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, the difference between the Knicks last year and this year is that their bench unit. They have two, and the crazy thing is, you got Miles McBride, who's a bucket getter off the bench, who hasn't played due to injury, and Landry Shamet. So it's going to be interesting to see how they work the rotations with Kolak playing so well and Clarkson. But either way, they have players that they can rely on. And even with the New York Knicks starters struggling in this game, they still found a way to win. And that's why I think they're going to win the Eastern Conference. And this is why I have them over Detroit. Just because of like y'all brought up for OKC, they have the experience. They've been here. Detroit necessarily doesn't have that. Like, they've been to the playoffs, but that doesn't, like, you didn't win against the Knicks, right? They've been to this. They've been doing this, especially a lot of these players on the team, especially Brunson, in the Dallas Mavericks days and stuff like that. But, like, I really like the Knicks. For the Cavaliers, they're cooked. Jared Allen's one of the worst centers in the league, and no one talks about it. I don't understand why no one talks about it. He needs to be traded, right? Darius Garland, this was one of his better games. And I don't want to put this on Donovan Mitchell, but I do think Donovan Mitchell's so down the stretch, and this is the reason why they lost the game. Tyler Kolak did a hustle play where he blocked Donovan Mitchell's layup. But the whole time, Donovan Mitchell's over here trying to cock back and do a crazy dunk because his girlfriend's in the crowd. You don't need to do all that, bro. You don't need to do that. Just go for the simple layup.
But he posted the one dude though. He posted OG though.
Yeah, that's cool. And they lost.
Hey, then he hit the three though to make it a 2-point game. He was showing out.
I'm like, listen, I'm not trying to put the blame on Mitchell, but in those crucial moments, you just got to go for the simple layup, bro, because then there would have been like 4 points, bro. He over here trying to make it bro, chill. Your team is already bad enough. You can't make one mistake. You make one mistake, you see what happens. That's this is what the team is, bro. I got Dean Wade's out here. I got Jared Allen's and Sam Morrill's. Who the hell are y'all? Like, I know y'all, obviously, but for real, like, this is a bad team. You know what I mean? And then DeAndre Hunter, like, every time I watch him, this dude is not a serious basketball player. He's just not a serious basketball player. He's just not. And then you got Thomas Bryant looking goofy as hell. The dude hits a three, and he's, like, running up the court like, bro, you sit your ass and you got 3 minutes, bro. You feel me? Lonzo Ball forgot how to play basketball.
Sure.
Literally forgot how to play basketball. He's no longer a good player.
In the minutes he played.
You know what I mean? Shout out to Jalen Tyson, though. Jalen Tyson's a hooper. That's probably the only positive thing that they got going on to this season, because everybody else has been awful. Mobley, I remember somebody told me Mobley's going to be in the MVP conversation. The day he's in the MVP conversation is the day the Wizards win a championship.
All right. Holy Wizards straight. But I feel you. That's not realistic.
But, yeah, and that's the tough part about this for the Cavs is, like you said, this was a winnable game. This would have been such a huge momentum booster where, like, you get a win against one of your main competitors, one of the best teams in the league, and you just blew it in the fourth quarter. And like you said, it's like you can't blame Garland too much anymore. I know he had a couple of rough shots in the fourth, but, like, just in general, he's been better. It's hard to blame Mitchell. I know you mentioned his late game failed heroics, but, like, just in general, like, he's been really good on the year. But then it's like some of the negative aspects for the Cavs that we talked about going into the season, where it's like just the toughness, where you did mention, like, Jared Allen, he was really struggling against Mitchell Robinson. And, like, that's a problem because, when you have both of your bigs out there, like, you kind of have to be able to be a little bit, and then, like, it sounds kind of cliche, but, like, that is one of the questions about Allen in the last few years is, like, people have kind of questioned, like, is this guy, really a foxhole type of big, right? Even though he gets paid a decent amount of money and he's a good player, but just in general, like, is it really worth it? Like, do you actually kind of at some point kind of commit to the idea of, like, maybe we do just move Jared Allen and just kind of move Evan Mobley to the 5, and maybe just kind of focus on getting, like, a 4 in there. I don't know who that would necessarily be, but, like, just in general, that might be the ultimate question. But it's just with the Cavs, they're in that second apron. So what can they realistically do? And that's where I'm like, I don't know if they can really do a whole lot. They might be stuck with the group they have. Like I could see them maybe moving like a Dean Wade or somebody, like just moving a guy that doesn't make a lot of money just to kind of maybe get under whatever apron or whatever that they need to do. I could see that. I don't know. I'd be a little bit more surprised if they made a big move because how are they going to do it, right? Because like you can't take back more money than you send out. You got to free up salaries anyways. Like I know, obviously, if you're the GM, like okay, you should probably know how to do all of this, but like, what's the move? Like you said, they may be a little bit cooked. At the very least, like the fact that you were not getting trounced in this game, like they did against the Warriors C team or the Charlotte Hornets, like that's at least a good sign. But it's like at a certain point, like you got to show us, like you're gonna have to start rattling off a bunch of wins because they're in the play-in, right? At this time last year, I believe they were 25-4, right? This year they are 17-15. They're 2 games above 500, right? The Detroit Pistons are where the Cavs are now. Like they're looking up at the Pistons. That's not where you expect it to be if you're the Cavs. So they got to figure that out. And like you mentioned with the Knicks, I do think that with the Pistons, they had the playoff experience, but also just like in terms of the personnel, I feel like they're a little bit too reliant on Cade, and like that's just the makeup of the roster, right? So like that'll change if they can, get some new guys in there, but they also don't have a lot of 3-point shooting. That would be my concern too. But it's like, I mean, I took the over on the Pistons, but even I couldn't have like expected them to be the 1 seed. I mean, look at their record, right? They only have one more loss than Oklahoma City. Like that's really impressive. Like just considering the group of guys they had going into the season, where you're kind of thinking like, yeah, they lost players. They didn't really bring any really good players in. I know they brought in Duncan Robinson. That's pretty much it. But that's we don't have to spend a ton of time on them because they didn't get a Christmas game. Maybe they'll get one next year, but I mean, were you by and large like happy with what we got? Because like I mean, like in general, like it would have been different. Like say if Halliburton doesn't get hurt, probably get Pacers in there. Tatum's not hurt, we probably get Boston in there. But like I don't think the matchups like in general were like bad ideas, right? Like like a couple of the games sucked, but like just in general, like I think like the idea was there. And like we said, this is why the Christmas is NBA's day. It's not football's day.
Yeah.
Like, did you guys watch a ton of the football games?
Yeah, I watched the Commanders Cowboys game.
Right.
That wasn't too
Yeah.
fun. I mean, my team lost. It freaking sucked. They're injured to oblivion. So, and I think what
Cool.
was the other game? Freaking was it Detroit?
Yeah,
Detroit, Minnesota, and
And
Houston,
then
bro.
Kansas
Yeah,
City,
and it's like
Denver.
Kansas City, Mahomes is done. So it's like, what was the point of that? But like the NBA games were cool though. Like I enjoyed pretty much. I think there was a good takeaway from each matchup. How about that? Right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
there was
What we
some,
just did.
yeah, there were some enjoyable moments from the Houston game for sure. Great seeing Cooper Flag do his thing, and then the other games are pretty much all bangers in my opinion. So
My final take for these Christmas games is San Antonio Spurs on the Oklahoma City Thunder. Golden State's goofy as hell. Anthony Davis can't run a straight line before he gets hurt. Lakers are frauds.
okay,
Houston still don't trust them, and Minnesota needs a damn trade.
Yeah.
fair
And
enough.
any takeaways about like jerseys or anything before we wrap it up?
Man, I'm goofy ass jersey, man.
Yeah. Like are we so we're good. We're good. Like we don't have to necessarily have any Christmas jerseys. Like we're good.
It is what it is, bro.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm cool with that. Yeah, well, I guess now we'll close it out with our normal thing that we do in terms of our polling, and we asked the question of which Christmas game are you most excited for? And it was basically a tie with all of them. So, well, the only team that didn't get any vote, the only matchup that didn't get any votes was Knicks Cavs, but everybody else was basically split. So, that's kind of a sign where like everybody was excited about all the matchups, which is interesting. But I thought Knicks Cavs would get a little bit more of a bump.
Who voted on the Golden State Dallas?
Probably Warriors fans. Straight up.
Trolls.
Yeah, Warriors fans.
Yeah, I'm telling you, it was basically a split.
Yeah, that's stupid.
Yeah. So, yeah, but either way, this concludes today's episode of the Off Ball Takes podcast. Of course, we appreciate all the support. Check out all of our socials at the OBT podcast if you want to join in on these, and of course, continue to like and subscribe. And we'll see you next episode.